Hello heathens, this is part 2 of my series video. So in the intro yesterday I was saying it's kind of stop, start, continue, and then actually I'm adding a 4th category of reread, so that will be the last one. So today, yesterday we did start because, you know, that's how you start, right? Today we are doing stop question mark on some of them. So these are series where some I'm pretty sure I'm going to stop and some I'm questioning. I'm not sure. It's kind of a maybe on these ones. So let's start off with a maybe. So the first maybe here is House of Marion by J.L. Now, I started reading this a few months ago now. And honestly, I was enjoying it. I was kind of getting into it. And then I stopped. And you can see exactly where I stopped on page 91, right over there. Like right in the middle of a chapter as well. I stopped and I have not picked this up again. And that's really annoying. And it also, so it either is one of those things where it's telling me I'm just not that interested, but also at the same time, while I was reading it, I was actually enjoying it. And it's very much about this girl who has a certain kind of magic that's deemed dangerous. And then she is kind of sent back to her family university, I want to say, where they study magic, but I think she's trying to hide the fact that she has this particular, I think it's like a death type of magic, and they're being trained. There's all cool things about like tiaras growing out of their heads and all. I remember it being, I was enjoying it, I was liking it, I can't remember not liking it, but I also don't really remember now why I just suddenly stopped in the middle of a chapter and never picked it up again. So it's one of those ones where I feel like maybe I need to reread like the last few chapters where I stopped and just sort of see whether or not I want to continue with that one. Then one that I do not want to continue with, and that is A Tempest of Tea by Hafsa Faisal. This was in a recent video I did wrapping up my reading for the month, and I DNF'd this. I wasn't having a good time. All the elements are there. I was meant to be having a good time with this because it's vampires, it's a tea room that turns into a blood room in the evening. There's like a heist element to it, but I could not get on with the writing. I found it irritating. I didn't like it. I wasn't invested in any of the characters. There was just something that did not connect with me. I know some people love it, some people not so much, but for me personally, it didn't connect, and I don't think I'd be reading from the author again in general, just because I really did not like the style of writing in this book particularly. And that's something I found lately, that if I don't like the style of writing, I won't continue. So this one, so this is Scarlet by Genevieve Cogman. Now it's kind of gutting as well. So this is a little bit like House of Marion, where I started, I mean, when I say started, page 23, right? I think it's like chapter 3 or something, chapter 2. God, I only got to chapter 2 in it. And something about it just didn't grip me. So I was doing kind of try a chapter. This is a vampire book. This is a vampire book set around the French Revolution. Now, in my first video, I talked about how I love things to do with the French Revolution. Like in France, I like things around the French Revolution anyway, but I love stuff set in France. I love stuff set in Paris particularly. I've got another series that I'm in the middle of that I'll be putting in my other video that's set in Paris. There's 2 series that I want to start that are set in Paris. And again, on paper, I should absolutely love this. I should love the premise and should love the series. And it's really bizarre. When I did the try chapter, I sort of read that first chapter, page 25, and I was a bit like, meh. And then I picked something else up because this just didn't grip me, whereas the other chapter that I tried did. Now, I do want to give this another chance because really, I should love it. However, I have since remembered that Genevieve Cogman, I've read from her before. I believe it was like the one with the library. And again, on paper, those books sound like Invisible Library, I think it is, sound incredible. But I think I had the same problem where I just wasn't engaged, and it might be the writing. Not that I didn't find the writing annoying or anything. I think it's just a very straightforward style of writing, but maybe that's the problem. I don't know, just something about it did not grip me. So this one is a maybe. I want to try some more chapters. I want to give it a better go because I do try to, with DNFing, unless I'm really like, unless there's something that I'm just like, absolutely not, I'm out. That doesn't happen that much because I've got a pretty varied and high tolerance for things. But normally I give it to about a page 100 because I think that's fair. In like a 300 odd-ish book, you know, to get a third of the way through and just realize it's not for you. But anyway, so we try that again. Then one that I'm not going to continue on, and this is The Revenant Games by Margie Fasten. Now, there's nothing particularly wrong with this. I gave this like a 3.5 star, had a good time. It's about witches, vampires, and the humans that are kind of caught in the middle, because the witches use the humans for blood magic, the vampires use the humans for food, and there's like a tournament aspect in this where you have to be either a champion for the witches and the vampires. Our main character, she does that. She enters this tournament. There's kind of a love story. But again, I think this is Maggie Fasten's writing. So I've also got another book of hers, Cruel Illusion. I don't actually know if that one's a series. If it is, it's probably going to be in this pile as well, because I've started reading it. And again, I've put it down and not picked it up again. And on paper, this has got magic. This has got like vampire slayer elements. There's apparently a magical tournament, so I'm definitely going to pick that one up again, and I'll reserve my thoughts on that. But there was something about the writing as well, and again, not bad writing at all. Something is not making me connect, and I have no desire to kind of read the second book. There's way too many series that I want to read and that I'm in the middle of. Then we'll move on to another one that, if you'd asked me this a few months ago, I would have said absolutely not reading the second book in the series. At the moment, there's a question mark. So this is Grimstone by Sophie Lark. And I had this, so if you want to hear my real kind of, while I was reading it, thoughts, there's a video that I think I put out with my thoughts on this. And I was reading kind of dark romance books. And I ranted about the fact that this was sort of smut scene to smut scene to smut scene, and there was not enough world building. This is a very cool kind of town with a very odd sort of history, and it could be a bit more sort of Gothicana style, but it's not. It was just like, oh great, a scene, and oh, another smut scene, another smut scene. The problem is she's put out the second book, Monarch, and it's maybe the covers that I'm seduced by, but when I was reading the premise for Monarch, it sounded really cool because, again, it talks more about sort of the history of this town and this girl kind of coming to the history of this town, and it is dark romance again. But my fear is going to be that it sounds really good, and then when I pick it up, it's just going to be a whole bunch of smut scenes strung together. So, again, there is a question mark here. I would have said absolutely not, but that premise of Monarch sounds good, and I keep looking for the next Gothicana. I may be looking in vain. Then one that I am not gonna, again, part of me says absolutely not, and I don't think I've really spoken about Evocation. This has to be one of the most beautiful covers of books that I have. It's by Esther Gibson. And again, in my wrap-up, I talked about how I think Dowry of Blood is fantastic, and I think it's slowly kind of descended for me with the Esther Gibson books that I've read, and I think this is her most recent. On paper, I was supposed to love this. This is about a guy whose family has made a deal with the devil. It's coming up to his 30th birthday. The devil wants payment, i.e. wants his soul. All of the characters are kind of magical. They're in this kind of magical society. There's a why choose romance in this as well. And that's where I was like, no. This book focuses way too much on the domestic romance between two of the main characters, like the marriage. And like, they're going to drink coffee and they're going to go eat a croissant. And it's like, this other guy, David, his soul is about to be taken by the devil. There's all these arcane magical societies. Why are we not focusing on that? And again, my problem with Esther Gibson is she doesn't focus on the dark enough for me. This story, again, if you had given this to an Alexis Henderson, an Ava Reid, you know, it would have been fantastic. But she just sort of let me down. There were some bits that I absolutely liked. But overall, it was left really flat and really underwhelmed. There's a second book coming out on this. I'm really disappointed. There was a novella that I definitely didn't want to read because it was about the couple. That really annoyed me. But yeah, I wish I could give those stories to, Lyndall Clipstone to write, or like I said, Alexis Henderson to write, or I just want to darker. I want it to go there, and it's too light and fluffy for what the premise of the book is. Then another series that I will not continue is Mistress of Lives by K.M. Enright. And again, I'm so disappointed because This cover, first of all, is stunning. The premise is actually really good. So you've got this kind of society of vampires. They use blood magic. I love anything with blood magic in it. I'm going to be doing a whole kind of video on kind of blood and bone magic because I've read a lot of books in that vein. And it's something that I really love. And I thought I was going to really love this and I didn't. And again, it left me, it's a bit like Evocation. It left me really disappointed. I kind of could see the bad guy coming from a mile away. The relationship, I really wasn't into. The character development wasn't that great. The premise, like the first bit of the book was incredible, and the second half sort of let me down. So I'm kind of sad to say that I won't be continuing. This is a beautiful book, but it, content-wise, it didn't really do it for me. And then the last one I have here is one that I'm questioning, and I'm shocked that I'm questioning it, and I'll tell you why. So I read the Foxglove King, which is behind me over there somewhere. That 5-star, no notes, loved that book. Again, it's got to do with like almost necromancy power, the god of light versus the goddess of darkness, you know, life and death. The main character in that book, I love her. She's feisty, she's a poison runner. This world is interesting, the kind of a world of ingesting poisons. Like the kind of the priests that they have in this world, they're very much focusing on, like I said, the blood magic, the bones, the mort, the death. Loved it, absolutely loved it. Loved the relationship. So there's kind of there's 3 people, and she's trying to decide between, you know, between these 2 guys. They're very different. I loved all that in the first one. So I was super excited, and I've just read this. So I've literally just read this. This is the Hemlock Queen. So I obviously won't go too much into this if you know, because it'll spoil the story. But I feel like, I thought this was a duology. So I went into it thinking it was a duology. Started reading it and went, it's a tiny bit slow. And I feel like this suffers a little bit from middle book syndrome because apparently it's a trilogy, not a duology. The ending, I will say, I loved. So based on the ending, I do want to kind of know how the story concludes and what happens. But a good chunk of this book I found unnecessary. I found like we were filling time. And there is sort of a story kind of going on in the background. It sort of builds up to that ending. But like there were bits in this book where they did endless like parties and court engagements. And there was a lot of descriptions about, and don't get me wrong, I love a good description about clothing, but you know, her getting dressed in various gowns and that. And I was like, great, but where's the action? Where we're going with all of this? There's a lot of back and forth in the kind of the relationship part of it. And I guess I kind of get it because I'm assuming it's setting up the finale, and it was setting up sort of the final bit of the book to then kind of go to the third one. But I was not in love with this for sort of 70 to 80% of my reading time, and that's why it was definitely on the questioning pile. What I will say is, because I love this magic so much, and I do kind of want to know what happens to these characters, so I probably will pick up the third book. But still, I will say that this was a disappointment of the year. This will be in my disappointments of the year, because I thought this middle book was going to be a lot better than it was. Right. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree, disagree, and I will speak to you all soon again. Bye.